Here's what you should know about your local housing market in this week's Market Update. We've got mortgage rates averaging 6.3% this last week for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. That is up 0.4% from the prior week, and it's up 0.22% over last year. I know a lot of people expected that rate to come down even more after hearing the announcement by the Fed that they were lowering their Fed funds rate. Please keep in mind the Fed does not set mortgage rates. Mortgage rates are typically speculative factors such as the Fed funds rate, such as the jobs report, but it's more so based on the expectations than the reality. So for example, if the Fed lowers the rate, the Fed funds rate, the amount that is expected, then the mortgage rates likely will not change. So the mortgage rates are based on what they think the Fed will do. So if the Fed says, hey, at our next meeting, we're anticipating lowering the rate by this much, or the general consensus is that that's what they're expecting, that will already be baked into the rate when you go into that Fed meeting. And if the rates change after that meeting, it's because the Fed did something different than expected. So for example, if the Fed lowered rates less than anticipated, those mortgage rates will actually go up. If they lower rates more than anticipated, those rates will likely go down more. If the Fed does what's expected, maybe rates will stay the same. But if the Fed in their comments makes indications that they will not continue to do certain things, or that there's uncertainty of what they will do next, those rates could actually go up as well. So do be cautious about tying your expectations about mortgage rates too closely to what happens in these Fed meetings. Let's get into what's happening in these local towns this past week. We are looking at Morristown, Chatham, Madison, Harding, Morris Plains, Mendham, Chester, Bernardsville, Basking Ridge, and Randolph. This past week, we saw 32 homes come on the market in these towns. That's a 40% decrease over new homes on the market last week. Pretty much every single one of these towns saw a significant decline in the number of new homes on the market, except for Mendham and Bernardsville. We saw the greatest number of new homes come on the market in Morristown and Morris Township. Out of these, 28 were single-family houses, and 4 of them were condos or townhouses. So still very much skewed towards single-family houses, which is a good thing because that's where the greatest amount of demand lies currently with buyers. Average list prices last week was actually up 7%. That was $1,193,000. And we saw Chatham with the highest average list price of $1,834,000. And then a second place with Chester at $1,750,000. Total inventory, not surprising, with a weak replenishment of new inventory. Total inventory is down 6% this week. We currently have 234 homes actively on the markets in these towns. Total homes sold, that number is also down. That's down 8% this past week. So we saw 33 homes sell this past week. We saw the greatest number of home sales in Morristown and Morris Township with 8. Average list price of homes sold in these towns was $1,033,000. The average sale price was $1,048,000. This past week, homes in these towns sold for an average of 4.1% above the list price. We didn't see any astronomical sales. The highest average list price this past week was in Chatham at $1,329,000. In terms of going above list price, every single one of these towns had homes sell above list price, except for Chester, where homes sold for 7.7% below the list price. Otherwise, the rest of these towns went substantially above list price, anywhere from 1.7% above list price in Basking Ridge, all the way up to 10% above list price in Morris Plains. So in terms of the homes that were sold this last week, most of those towns' homes sold significantly above list price. Average days on market for these home sales was 34 days on the market. That is a 31% decrease over the prior week. And then finally, under contract. Under contract, well, somewhat incomplete data is the most current data that represents what the current market is doing. So this past week, we saw 44 homes gone under contract. That's a 6% decrease from the prior week. Average list price of the homes that went under contract was $1,225,000, which is a 7% increase over the prior week. And the median days on market, significant increase. Median days on market increased 45% over the prior week's homes that went under contract. And that is but it's still only at 26 days on the market. So we are seeing some mixed signals. It's going to be interesting to see. Like we said, homes are still selling significantly above list price. However, in the active homes that we see come on the market, not everything is just going nuts right out of the gate. The lower price points a little bit more so. But as a home seller, do be patient. Not getting an offer in the first few days, first week, does not mean that your home is not sellable. Does not even mean that you will not get over list price. So do have some patience. That timetable is taking a little bit longer on some homes, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Another thing to watch out for, who you hire matters. I'm seeing way too many agents who still do not understand how the commission structure and rules work. We've had our new structure for over a year now. It is a legal requirement to follow it, and I'm seeing too many agents saying, we are paying out this percentage. You are not paying out anything until that contract is signed. Just like a list price on a property is simply an indicator of what you are looking to get. So if your agent as a seller says that you are only going to offer out this amount to the buyer's agent, be cautious how they structure that, how they pitch that, and do not expect for that number to necessarily hold. Your offers can come in at many different amounts of requests of them compensating their buyer's agent. And the same goes with home buyers. Do not be fooled if a home seller's agent tells you we are only paying out this percent or we are paying out this percent to cover your buyer's agent's commission. That is simply an offer. Whether they understand that or not, that is an offer. You can offer whatever you want and everything is negotiable. So make sure you're working with someone who understands, who is able to structure different offers, and unfortunately is able to coach and explain things to the other agent who may not know what they're doing. So thanks so much for checking in with me. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll catch you guys again next week.